Makers, la mette in mezzo, bella tiro, gol! Luka Modric, ha segnato Luka, ecco il gol del maestro!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Oli Fisher, joined once again by Anthony, the irremovable Torgrud.
The what am I this time?
Irremovable.
Irremovable.
You can be immovable, which means immovable, forced, unstoppable object.
Remove me.
Irremovable means I literally, even if I wanted to, I couldn't do it.
My claws are ingrained. I am the deep state of this podcast. Conspiracies about me exist, I guess, but here we are.
Do they?
Sure.
Have you ever checked fan fiction just to see if there's anything going on about the SempreMilan podcast?
Don't Google me. You don't want to know.
Yeah. This is a good start. Hey, look, there's a reason. There's a reason we're a bit jittery. You know, it's derby week. The nerves are in the air. How are you feeling? Are you feeling the big game buzz coming up? Does it help that it's been an international break? So it's like all you've got to think about?
You know, this is so boring, but I'm just too busy with work. I haven't really thought about it much. It's just one of those things. Like, I mentioned it this weekend because my fiance is like, I have no plans this weekend. And I said, well, I do. Like, she's like, oh, what do you mean? I said, well, the Derby. And she's like, oh. And I said, yeah, it's at 2:45 on Sunday. And she's like, wait, are you saying this is I have to be there? And I was like, well, I would appreciate it. It kind of guilt tripped her into joining me for the event. Yeah, so she marked it on her calendar. So now she's going to watch. So we have to win because she hasn't watched all season. So if she loses, she can't watch any more games.
I mean, we are on an 11-game unbeaten run.
Yep.
So, it is all on her, effectively, if we lose this. But yeah, we're going to do a deep dive derby preview because we haven't got a game to recap or anything, so we can give that one our full attention. Of course, it's a big one. The Italian papers this morning, I suppose they wanted to quickly move on from Italy's humiliation at home by Norway, but Gazzetta dello Sport this morning had 8 pages, so 4 two-page spreads of derby coverage, which is, mental a few days out from the game. Normally you get that the day off the game or the day before. But yeah, the hype is building. But before we dive in, thank you as always to our Substack founding members. The names are scrolling along the bottom there. I've not got any new names to read out this week, so let's change that for next week if you're thinking about it. You get your name read out and you become a permanent member of the bar scrolling across the bottom. Of course, it's on the socials at the moment, but I'm sure you've seen it before. Over on the Substack, which, as a reminder, you can try a week for free, you'll find in a standard week things such as Lorenzo and Stefano's most recent pub chat, where they talk a bit about Milan's struggles when it comes to investing in the right striker and finding the long-term solution for the number 9 position, but also how we're not alone and how in Serie A, especially since players have left like Matteo Retegui, last season's Capocannoniere winner, has gone off to the Middle East, there seems to be a big gap in terms of, effective number 9s and elite goal scorers. That's actually, when you look back, and we did a feature about this on the site too, that's kind of been missing since the 2010s, really, is having those, Cristiano Ronaldo level goal scorers within the league. Of course, a lot of them didn't play for us. You've got like Dries Mertens had a really good season, Carlos Tevez, Gonzalo Higuain, even Paulo Dybala had a season with, I think, 24, 25 league goals. So, we're sort of in a bit of a stagnation when it comes to elite strikers being in Serie A. And there are reasons for that, which they dive into, a lot of them financial. Speaking of financials, Isaac's most recent bonus article, he breaks down the wage bills and the squad costs of Milan compared to their rivals, and how there are certain indicators, and I found this eye-opening to read, so I'd suggest everyone spend 5 minutes and go and read this one. There are certain things where it's like the media portray it a certain way that our wage bill is way, way short of what Inter's is, and therefore that means that we are, we're paying less for our squad, when in actual fact, because we spend so much more on transfer fees and you add in amortization on top of that, we actually come out relatively even with them. So it's not just about wages, although that is a big indicator. There's some interesting figures within that. The most recent bonus podcast that me and you did, we went through, I believe it was 6 renewals that Milan are supposed to be supposedly in talks over, from Fikayo Tomori and Alexis Salamakers to the more thorny ones like Maignan and Pulisic. We did a bit of an individual sort of stock take on each of those and where we think it's going. And then you've got the newsletter, which covers a couple of topical things about the club, and you get a bulletin in that which has all the big stories and a roundup of the women's and the youth teams and the Futuro and stuff like that. So that's kind of an all-encompassing thing. So yeah, go check it out. As I said, you can try a week for free, and we're always open to suggestions on things that you would like to see. Derby time.
Woo!
Last season was really nice with this fixture.
That was the only fixture.
It was, yeah. How strange it was, right? That we went from Stefano Pioli's last season was a disaster. There's no two ways about it. And it saw the cursed run in the derby continue. We ended up losing 6 straight games against Inter, which spanned over the 2 seasons, I believe. But we lost some big ones in that as well. 2-legged ties, and of course we lost the derby that handed them their 20th Scudetto in our home game, and that's a pretty dark moment, for many. Although they haven't won 20 on the pitch, so I still refuse to acknowledge the second start, as is my right. And we will be the first when we win it this year. I'll have to stitch another one of this. Yeah. But yeah, a really negative run in the derby, and then in our most chaotic season in recent years, the script completely flipped. We win that first one under Paulo Fonseca, who had a tortured few months, really, in charge. But we played really well in that. Gabbia, boy of Milanista, gets the winning goal with a header. Then you've got the Supercoppa final, where we come from 2 goals down. Pulisic off the bench completely changes the game, and we win it 3-2. Tammy Abraham, again, late winner, added time this one. Then you've got the Coppa Italia. Oh, it might have been the return league game, which was a 1-1 draw. They scored late in that one. It was De Vrij who scored, I believe.
Yeah, like 94th minute.
Yeah, so that was a sickener to take, but we had been battered in that game. It had been coming. I think they hit the post 4 times or something, and we didn't even try really for a second goal. Reinders got the opener in the first half on the counter, and we held out until then. But yeah, they ended up getting the point that they probably deserved. Coppa Italia, first leg draw, not a great game. Tammy Abraham got the opener, and they equalised through Çalhanoğlu. And then we win 3-0 in the return leg in what was probably the best performance of the season, objectively. That or Real Madrid away, but Real Madrid away was so open and it was a league phase game, whereas this was like, we can win a semi-final against Inter, get to a final where we'd probably be favourites against Bologna. We know how it ended up. But Luka Jovic was the star of the show with a brace, and then there was a late third goal to seal it from Reinders, I think it was. I can't remember who scored the third goal, and I should.
Is Pulisic the only goal scorer against Inter last season that is still on the squad?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, because you got Jovic, Abraham, Reinders.
I'm gonna go back.
Yeah, I think that.
Leao genuine would be.
Did Leao score? No.
Leao might have.
What was the Supercoppa? In order, the Supercoppa. There was a Theo Hernandez free kick, then Pulisic equalised, and then Leao set up Tammy. Yeah. Then Reinders definitely scored.
Hernandez, Abraham in the 2-3. And then Gabbia. Pulisic and Gabbia.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course, Gabbia, yeah.
Wow. So the first 2 people to score against Inter last season are the only ones still here.
But effectively,
we might be in trouble.
I mean, that's wild, yeah. And everything has completely changed as well. We had 2 coaches for the derbies last season, and both seemed to kind of have Simone Inzaghi's number, whereas before it was just like, Pioli was Simone Inzaghi's lapdog. Whatever he threw at him, he seemed to find a way to undo us. And some of those losses were pretty brutal that we took, without scoring and stuff. Whereas last season, as I said, that all the chaos that was surrounding the club, we were a scandal a week, and yet every time we played Inter, they just could not get one over on us. So we played them 5 times. We don't lose a game. We're on a 5-game unbeaten run in the derby going into this, which is remarkable, really. And yeah, I still can't help but feel anything but nervous going into this game.
Yeah, we're gonna lose.
Yeah, this is where I think we should get the good karma out there, or if you believe in that kind of thing. But rivalry aside, just looking at it purely objectively, I am surprised by how good Inter have been this season. I think a lot was made in the summer about the biggest change, and that was losing Simone Inzaghi, who went to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, and they hired what I would consider still a rookie coach in Christian Chivu, sorry. He'd had 13 games, I think, as basically caretaker manager of Parma, and they decided that's our guy. But I think because there wasn't an awful lot else in the market, and of course he's a club legend and stuff, he does have plenty of derby experience as a player. So yeah, everyone saw that as quite a huge downgrade. How is his style going to follow on from a very clear tactical identity under Inzaghi? And the answer is pretty seamlessly. There was sort of a bit of an experimentation with like a 3-4-2-1, I think, in the Club World Cup and stuff. Not sure how much of that was due to absences, but he settled into this 3-5-2. There are quite a few different principles. They do play a much higher line and they do press much higher. And there are certain things that work in a different way, but generally it has been a pretty flawless transition, which annoys me to say.
It has, and that's weird, to be honest with you. I thought it wouldn't be. I predicted them to do awful and that he would be sacked before November, which obviously didn't happen. I said we would be facing Palladino's Inter. That doesn't exist. So, what do I know?
Palladino's Nerazzurri, though.
Yes. How crazy is that, huh?
Yeah, in the vision.
I just had the wrong club. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Crazy. I actually forgot that happened. So, good reminder. But one of the things that has shocked me is, like you said, how seamless the transition has been. That was something that when Conte left, we said Simone Inzaghi was the best possible appointment because the systems were so similar. He could just build upon that, and he did, obviously. And he, in my opinion, and probably most people's opinions, eclipsed Conte's legacy at Inter with his own success and getting to 2 Champions League finals, obviously losing both, but a 5-0 biggest loss in Champions League final history. Don't forget it.
Never forget it.
Never forget. So that, he was really good for them, really impressive. And then he went to Al Hilal, watched his debut, 0-0 draw against another team I've never heard of. But then Chivu came in and, he did start off rocky, and I think it was just the accumulation of games that they had, right? They were exhausted by the end of last season because they went so far in the Champions League. They were dropping points left and right in the final stanza of Serie A. They probably should have won the league. They lost it only by a point. There were opportunities there. It was a 2-2 collapse against Parma that lost them the title, essentially. Or you could say it was one of our victories against them, whichever you want to do. It doesn't matter. But they lost just barely. Could have and probably should have won. And now with Chivu, I think they just didn't have the steam going into the summer for the Club World Cup. But after they had the rest, he really has done a great job. And I am concerned how we're going to line up. One thing that Inter always does and have done again is we tend to play them immediately after an international break, whether it's week 4 or week 3, week 4.
Yeah, we do.
Or
we do
in November. And they always have multiple players get injured in international duty and then miraculously recover. And this time it happened again with 2 or 3 players. And then you have the Netherlands coach saying that Inter requested Dumfries to come back early, that he was not hurt. And that's why he went back. So there's a little gamesmanship from them, as always.
Maybe they've got one eye on their country and one eye on the derby, so to speak.
I can think of someone in
like
there.
Beppe Marotta. One eye looking at you, the other looking for a bus. That's the best way I can summarize him. But yeah, you said everything there that I think we're all thinking. I mean, it was a weird summer, with the Club World Cup and its new format and everything. And I did not expect, they didn't do brilliantly Inter, but they topped their group with a draw and 2 wins. That draw was because of a Sergio Ramos goal as well against Monterrey. But then they beat Urawa Red Diamonds and they beat River Plate 2-0. They get to the round of 16 and they lost 2-0 against Fluminense, a game where Thiago Silva, more to come on him in a bit, had a fantastic game, I remember. But I didn't see that as necessarily a catastrophic failure because you've got to think about the accumulation of everything that happened the season before. I mean, they're an aging squad as it is, but they go all the way on multiple fronts. Coppa Italia semi-final, 1 game away from the capital, where I think they'd have probably beaten Bologna, but they lose that one. They get all the way to the Champions League final. And it's not just getting to the Champions League final, it's the way that they did it as well. They won 6 out of their 8 games in that league phase. And then they beat Feyenoord in the round of 16 easily, 4-1 on aggregate. We obviously got knocked out by them. They beat Bayern Munich 4-3 on aggregate. We thought was the classic of the entire knockout stage. And then they go and beat Barcelona 7-6 on aggregate to then lose 5-0 in the final. That's just a lot of fireworks to throw at a group of players, especially one that are very clearly leaving everything out there to try and win every competition that they're in, rather than just having one to focus on. And then, that what happened before the Champions League final, of course, they lost the Scudetto battle in the end in the final round of the season to Napoli, something else that can't have been easy for that group of players to go through. But in the summer, aside from the changing coach, there wasn't a huge amount that happened really in terms of overhaul. As always seems to happen, they get linked with losing star players. There's all this talk of Premier League bids or Barcelona bidding for Lautaro or whatever, and it just never really seems to happen. They've kept that core together again. When I put the teams up, the predicted teams in a minute, you'll see a lot of the same names, but they didn't really lose anybody big. In fact, their biggest sale was Zalewski to Atalanta for 17 million. The rest is all pretty minor things. But then in terms of signings, they didn't exactly spend a load of money either. They signed Anju Amboni from Parma for 23 mil plus 2 mil bonuses, and Andy Diouf from Lens in France for 20 mil plus 5 mil in bonuses. Not seen a ton of him so far. In fact, how many games has he played? According to this, he's played a couple of games, so I think he must be injured. But yeah, they've kept basically that core of players, and they've kept that management structure in place as well. And I think it's just a reminder, in case we needed any reminding, that having a solid structure means that you can replace the odd part here and there on the go. And they've done that, and they look fine for it. There's been a very, very brief period of turbulence, as you kind of alluded to. At the start of the season, they lost 2 of their first 3 league games. So they beat Torino 5-0 in the opener at San Siro, but then lost at home to Udinese 2-1, and then lost 4-3 in that mental game against Juventus. Yeah. At that point, they're in the bottom half of the table, and everyone's thinking this could quickly come unstuck. They clearly can't defend. And then they go on an incredible run since, where they've won 7 out of 8. Most impressive victories being probably the 1-0 away against Roma, which kind of put them right up in there as the pack. But then they lost 3-1 against Napoli after that. But yeah, since then, they've won all 3 games, conceding just 1 goal. In the Champions League, they've won all 4 games, conceding just 1 goal. Won 2-0 away at Ajax, 3-0 at home to Slavia, 4-0 away at Union Saint-Gilloise, and then beat Kairat of Kazakhstan 2-1 in the last game. But I do notice that their Champions League fixtures are very backloaded. They've got Atletico Madrid away, Liverpool at home, Arsenal at home, and Dortmund away. So, don't be surprised if they don't keep up that pace in the Champions League.
And honestly, I would say their Serie A has been the same. Their biggest win is Roma, which absolutely is a big scalp, right? They're in second place. They're above us. We beat them as well, the exact same scoreline. But to lose to Napoli, a team we beat, to lose to Juventus, a team we should have beat with a missed penalty. Who else? Did they lose to Bologna? Have they played Bologna yet? I don't remember. But
no, they lost to Udinese. That's the other loss that they have.
Okay. Which is not a very good team, but hey, it could happen. Everyone's going to drop points eventually. But you look at their wins, and okay, Torino, Sassuolo, Cagliari, Cremonese, Fiorentina, Verona, Lazio. Like these are not crazy big teams. I guess you could say Lazio, but they are in 9th place this season. So
and they always bend over for Inter de Lazio. I can't remember the last time they gave him a game.
So, I mean, it is one of those things that, like, could this just be a product of good fixtures at this point in time? Who knows? Are they going into this with false confidence? Or is that exactly what this team needed under a rookie manager to build real confidence going forward, is to have this very backloaded, easy start to the season, maybe. But it does give me a little bit of hope that maybe this is not real.
Yeah. I think what you said there about that being really almost ideal set of games in order to, and not just in Serie A, but in Europe as well. That's not a bad set of games to get to try and build some momentum, sort of have the players remember what it is that they're very good at. And as I say, Chivu hasn't come in and tactically revolutionised anything. There was talk of him playing a 4-man defence, which I think he did a fair bit in his limited spell at Parma, but he hasn't done that. I think from this is annoying because I was hoping that it wouldn't be like this. But from what I've seen of Chivu, he just seems pretty commonsensical. Like he hasn't come in and tried to reinvent the wheel. He's acknowledged that a very good wheel exists. He'll just tweak the odd bit here and there. I do think that this season, so far, they've played football in the games that they've won that has rivaled as good as it got under Simone Inzaghi, which I know sounds mental, but I think that there were some fans who thought with Simone Inzaghi that he was quite pragmatic, let's put it that way, sort of as we're expecting to be under Allegri. Whereas with Chivu, it's more emphasis on being on the front foot, getting it to the front too early, using crosses from wide. And I think there has been a little bit of a more positive transformation in the style of play. And then you see that in the goals conceded a bit in the early part of the season, I think. And we'll see how they get on against some of Europe's elite in these coming games. But it's not a horrible run to close out the first half of the season, which actually stretches into early January. But it's not a horrible run. I mean, they've got us, Pisa away, Como at home, Genoa away, Atalanta away, Bologna at home, and Parma away. So even though it feels like they haven't really played anyone yet, they don't really, what's the most challenging game there? Bologna?
Yeah. And, when you look at Chivu's history, he was their Primavera coach for multiple years under Simone Inzaghi. So ideally, when you have your club structure, the style of play of the first team is what they use at the lower levels, right? So that they're developing into that style and they could slot in when needed. So he was essentially training in the Inzaghi system for 4 or 5 years, and then went to Parma for like 4 or 5 months and was managing them when they but when Inter had that 2-2 collapse against them to lose the title last season. So kind of ironic there, but it does actually make sense in hindsight that he slots right in perfectly as someone who was kind of an underling of Inzaghi. And why would you change the system, right? You saw it work. Like you said, you don't need to reinvent the wheel when you have a very good wheel in place. And that's what he did. He just said, okay, this is what we did. We didn't get any new players, very few. We didn't lose any star players. So everyone knows how to play. Let's just keep doing it. And, it's working out. I think there's some minor differences, but they're very minor. I think the defense isn't as solid. I think they do get a bit more forward than they probably did last year. And I don't know if that's just the players this time or if that's actually instruction. It's very minor, but that's the only thing I could actually think of. So, and I don't know. There we go. Back up.
I forgot to mention as well that they signed Manuel Akanji in the summer on a loan.
I forgot about him.
He could have been with us, and instead I kind of get why he chose there, to play in the Champions League and things. But yeah, they've got an option to buy him permanently, which
is he
more and more
starting every game?
I think he's starting most. Yeah,
every single league game. Okay.
Yeah. He's kind of exactly what we were looking for, but then at the same time, you could make a case that the way we've been defensively, at least in the big games, does he actually get in? But yeah, that's they're doing well. They're top of the table on goal difference, but it's so compact up at the top, and I don't think that this season it'll be a record-breaking points tally that wins Serie A. I think that has already become apparent. A lot of the top teams are fluctuating in terms of form, and I think that is what could potentially leave it open right until the end. We'll see if we're in that or not, but I am already starting to expect Inter to be in there. Barring some collapse that none of us really see coming at the moment, I think the quality of their squad, the depth that they've got, the experience, and a coach who seems to be pushing the right buttons to get the same tune out of them that Inzaghi did. I think they'll be right in and amongst it until the end of the season. They might even have another deep run in Europe, depending where they finish. That's just, I think that is the product. We are witnessing the product of such a strong club culture and organisation over the past few years. But let's stop licking ass. Let's talk about us. We're coming into this game with, I guess, reasons for optimism. Reasons to be positive. Okay, the game before the break did not go well. We drew 2-2 against Parma, but we're on an 11-game unbeaten run across all competitions, 10 games in the league. Our record in big games this season has been very good. We have beaten, in terms of teams that are currently in the top 6, which is the European places, we've beaten Roma, we've beaten Napoli, and we've beaten Bologna already. The only team we dropped points to were Juve, and we should have won that. Of course, we missed a penalty and some big chances, averaging 2.5 points per game in these, what they call direct clashes in Italy, whereas Inter are averaging 1 point per game. They beat Roma, but they lost to Napoli and Juve. So they've had their struggles in these particular fixtures. And maybe that's where some of Chivu's shortcomings will be found, is in these high-pressure moments. And yeah, just having that nous that Simone Inzaghi definitely had by the end of his time there. And for the first time, I think we are going to be able to see the Milan that was designed by Allegri over the summer. I'm touching wood, I'm crossing my fingers, I'm praying to every god under the sun. What's the little lucky cornicello thing? You know, the little lucky pepper that they have in Italy. Have you ever seen that? Nope. No, some people will get that. I used to have one on a keychain, but it's meant to be for good luck. All that stuff that we don't have any more injuries, because we are still technically in an international break and not all of our players are done. But it might well be an empty injury room for this game for the first time in a long, long time. So Rabiot and Pulisic obviously being the main ones. The big doubt is Santi Jimenez.
Okay, so Jimenez won't be fit, right?
Well, apparently he'll make the bench. That's the current thinking.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to delete my timer.
Yeah, but that's why I'm kind of like done.
I know.
I'm done, because something can happen. Something can go wrong. This is a good moment to recap how things went over the international break, I think, as well. Unlike the last break where we had to talk about injury after injury, thankfully we don't have too much to mention this time. The main headline really, I think, being that there were a lot of teams qualified for the World Cup during this. So France qualified and Milan kept a clean sheet and a 4-0 win that did it for them. Croatia and Modric qualified. Modric will now be heading to his 5th World Cup, which is, remarkable. If they hadn't missed that one in 2010, then it would have been 2010, 2012? 2010? Yeah, he missed South Africa, I think, in 2010.
Yeah, 2010.
Yeah, it would have been 6 World Cups. Like that's how long his career has spanned. But yeah, he's heading to a 5th World Cup, which is amazing. And the fact they qualified in the first game of the break means that he got a rest for the second, which was, very nice. Portugal have qualified with a 9-1 win against Armenia, in which Leao started. Didn't manage to get a goal contribution. But I've seen some of the clips from that game, and whoever was up front, missed a one-on-one that Leao set him up for. So he should have had something from that game, but it wasn't to be. And yeah, I think we've still got a couple of players that are playing tonight. Belgium, you had De Winter starting, played all 90 minutes, and Salamakers came off the bench. I think tonight they're both expected to play. So fingers crossed that that's not our undoing. Strahinja Pavlovic, I saw live in the flesh, played at Wembley for Serbia against England. They lost 2-0, or we won 2-0, I should say. And our place was already booked in the World Cup, but Serbia still had a chance of qualifying, but that rendered them out of it because Albania got the result that they needed. I think they've taken that pretty badly because of the rivalry between the countries, and I think Serbia are historically more of a footballing nation, I don't want to say superpower, but basically, before a ball was kicked, you probably expect Serbia to finish second in our group over Albania, and they didn't. And yeah, I don't think it's gone down too well. I think that has been quite tough on the players because they still have to deal with the pressure of playing, in front of their media and everything. In terms of his actual performance in that game, Pavlovic, he was absolutely fine against a pretty tough front three that England have. They've got plenty of options there. Fine until the last few minutes when they went to playing with two central defenders and no other defenders, just tried to lump balls forward. And then the second goal came from everyone being a bit all over the place, Pavlovic included. And yeah, I think that's it for the international roundup. David Odogu's been getting starts for Germany under-20s, who beat Italy 5-0 the other day.
So wait, he's not playing first team football still? Interesting. Okay.
You're expecting David Odogu to start for Germany's national team?
Well, I just remember when he signed, I said, yeah, this is a Futuro player. And, a lot of people said, no, he's first team. He signed for the first team. I said, oh, okay. And, I don't think he has.
I believe he started one game for the Futuro and has played 11 minutes for the first team, but it was in the Coppa Italia, so he doesn't have a single minute yet in the league. And yeah, there's been rumours about what could happen in the centre-back department this January, which I do want to get onto, but part of it does include Odogu. Gazetta had something this morning, as I mentioned, a big double-page spread. Up to this point so far, Milan's internationals have racked up a combined 846 minutes of action. It looks like we are going to get players back through today, tomorrow, and the last to arrive on Thursday. With the game being Sunday, there's a little bit more runway, as you mentioned, in to get a couple of players back in Çalhanoğlu and Dumfries. Though Dumfries is a doubt for the game, apparently. He actually has come back with a proper injury, and now he's unlikely to make it. I saw an Interjournalist tweet this morning.
I'm sure he'll be there.
But Çalhanoğlu is absolutely fine. He had a hand injury, which of course his footballers can't play with. And Inter had 992 minutes in the legs for their internationals, so it's substantially more. But at the same time, like Lautaro came back early, I believe it was, and the main thing is the Italians. Really, they had Barella, Bastoni, Di Marco, Pio Esposito, and Fratesi all scarred because they got booed off at San Siro. Absolute disgrace to the national team and a disgrace to the stadium. You can tell there's no Milan players present in that team because of their lack of European DNA.
It was really funny seeing like the Napoli fans, the Juve fans, the Roma fans, the Inter fans all attacking each other about who's at fault. And then we're just here like, not us. We weren't there.
Gambia. We did tell you. Samuel Enrique is better than Fratesi.
Yeah.
It's
interesting that the best player was Tonali, former Milan, though. And then you could argue the worst player, former Milan Donnarumma. But hey, we'll talk about
duality of Milan. I wanted to do something a little bit fun. I've got up the Gazzetta. This my idea of fun. Got up this Gazzetta, the predicted 11s at present on Tuesday, the 18th of November. This is how the two teams are expected to line up at the moment. And for those who are listening, I'll read through them. Inter 3-5-2. This battle of 3-5-2s. It's going to be Jan Sommer in goal, Akanji, Acerbi, Bastoni as a back three, Dumfries. There he is. And DeMarco as the wing backs, Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Sucic as the midfield three. I think Sucic has been pretty good. The summer signing they got from Croatia, he's been doing quite well. Thuram and Lautaro up front, and we are Maignan in goal, Tomori, Gabi, Pavlovic, Salamanca and Estupinian as the wing backs, Fofana, Modric, Rabiot as the midfield three, and then Puli, Leao up top, starting what would be their first league game together. The only bits of games that they've had in the league have been off the bench. So yeah, that feels pretty big to have very close to, if not our exact 11 that we envisaged before Serie A got underway this season. What I wanted to do is a combined 11.
Wow.
So this is good for algorithm and content. So, all right, let's start. Because the beauty of this is that the systems match up perfectly. We can go position by position.
Yeah.
Are you having Maignan or Jan Sommer?
Maignan.
I'm in agreement with that, but I do think Jan Sommer has been underrated. When he signed for Inter to become their new number one, I thought that ain't going to go well. I just didn't think he was that good, but he's been a really calm head and, he's experienced. His contract expires at the end of the season, as Maignan's does. So there's been a bit in the media this week about how what unites us both on a goalkeeping front is that we're probably both needing new long-term number ones at this point. And a lot of the targets are the same. Caprile, Suzuki, Atibolu, players like that. But yeah, I'm taking Maignan. as a better player right now. And now he's got his penalty saving back, elite.
It's the best, yeah.
Do you want to do the back three together? So name the three centre-backs. Or do you want to go actually right centre-back v right centre-back?
That's what I was doing in my head.
All right,
Made
okay,
it a
let's
lot
do that.
easier.
So Tomori or Akanji?
Tomori.
I'm taking Tomori this season. I think if you asked me this 12 months ago, I'm taking Akanji. But
Yeah.
what would be interesting, the sort of sliding doors moments that football and the derby presents, because we always have so many shared targets in the Mercato, is that would Akanji have displaced Tomori? Would Tomori be a reserve at this point? Whereas in actual fact, he's probably playing his best football since we won the league. So that is interesting. I think I'm taking Tomori, yes, but I wouldn't hate having Akanji. I think that's quite a close one. Gabbia or Acerbi?
Gabbia, easy.
I'm taking Gabbia, but Acerbi I would also include in the group of players that I think when they leave Inter will probably leave quite a big hole that many don't realise at the moment. He's been really, really good for them as the anchoring player of that three-man defence since he arrived from Lazio. I think a lot of people said it was a bit of a joke signing, really. They paid like $3.5 million for him, I think it was, and he was the subject of the memes smiling when Tonali scores the winner as we go on to win the league and stuff like that. But I think he's been a really good servant for Inter, and if he does leave at the end of the season, he's certainly repaid the small investment. Pavlovic or Bastoni?
Bastoni.
I'm giving that one to them, yeah. Although there was an article, and I hadn't seen it in this light until they wrote this, about how Pavlovic is actually playing very similar to Bastoni this season in the way that, left side centre-back, so it's the same position, but just being able to stride out and being quite an important magnet in build-up. So when he walks forward 30 yards, someone has to go to him. And that then frees up another player. So, yeah, they call it like a magnet effect of wherever he goes, he drags someone. And Bastoni kind of does the same. He's pretty important in the build-up. Let's go to the wing-back. Salamakers or Dumfries?
Salamakers. I think he's killed it this year, or last year as well. But I think he's done a very good job. And I don't fuck with Dumfries like that. So, Salamakers.
How much of this is personal?
All of it, yeah. Even the Pavlovic thing, yeah.
I feel like Dumfries has had a really good start to the season.
Yes.
I mean, you've picked him. You've picked Salamakers. Dumfries in Scotland. No, it's not that. Denzel Dumfries this season. He only has one goal in Serie A. Overall, he has 3 goals in 17 appearances. I'm giving it to Dumfries. I think he's a better wing back at the moment. But I don't think there's too much in it. I think the Tomori, Akanji and Salamakers Dumfries things are pretty close. I mean, we wanted Dumfries when he was at PSV, then kind of went cold on him and he went to Inter, and I think that was better for him because he's definitely a wing back rather than a full back. But he's a player that we know so well from the derby, and he doesn't have those duels with Teo anymore, on that left side. So we can chalk that off the subplots. But
I think this is still a subplot to watch. Salamakers is just as much of a gnat as Teo was, and I think Dumfries is going to figure that out real quick.
Yeah, I read something saying that if Dumfries isn't fit, then it's going to be Carlos Augusto who plays on that side rather than them playing Luis Enrique, who I haven't really seen much from him, since he signed from Marseille. They spent a decent chunk of the budget on a player in a position that they were well covered in, which I thought was strange. And I think that signing is being questioned now.
Well, I thought Dumfries was supposed to leave this summer and then just didn't, right? Wasn't he the main name?
He was he was definitely one of the names that got mentioned as being an exit candidate. But they've got decent depth at wing back, to be honest. I wouldn't mind Carlos Augusto on either side for us. So yeah, it'd be interesting how that matches up. But I just think if Dumfries starts and he's close to 100%, I see him winning that battle. He's way bigger, he's way faster, he's way stronger. I don't like that matchup. I don't like him in the derby. I'm always a bit worried about him.
Yeah.
But hopefully he can draw, like Salamakers did with Wesley, you can draw him into a psychological battle and beat him by being a little net, as you said. DiMarco Estupiñán, let's move on.
Yeah.
They've got Estupiñán. I think I would play Bartizaghi. I think it's
I go back and forth. Go ahead. We're going to say this.
I was going to say it's inexperience or inconsistency. You're picking one of the two. But I think Bartizaghi probably, with this being a game he will feel more as a boyhood Milan fan and academy graduate, you could use that as a demerit point and say he might get too invested in it and make mistakes off the back of that. But I think, a duel against his compatriot Di Marco and someone whose spot he's looking to take in the Italian national team in years to come, that could do him good. Like, it could actually just be a really good litmus test. Hopefully it wouldn't decide the result, a battle out in the flanks like this. Could be a good litmus test to see where Bartizaghi is really at. But I just think in the bigger games this season, he has struggled a bit.
That's my concern too. But Estupiñán has not been consistent either. So it's, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. So yeah, next.
Yeah, let's ask for Carlos Augusto on loan for the game or something. All right, let's do... So with the midfield, it's a bit difficult to do in it. But if we go right centre mid v right centre mid, Barella v Fofana.
Barella.
Enjoy.
Light work.
Modric or Çalhanoğlu? So Modric. There was a...
Yeah, fuck this article. It is dumb. It's stupid.
You've seen it? Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Sorry, but to rate Çalhanoğlu higher because he has penalties as an attacking midfielder over a guy who won a Ballon d'Or playing defensive midfield is ridiculous. It just shows they don't watch ball. They care more about the color blue than reality. And Modric is the greatest midfielder in existence. And Çalhanoğlu is, I was going to say the champ, but I'm not going to. He's not him. So, yeah, Modric all day, every day, moving on.
I don't understand the article. The one that we were referring to was in La Gazzetta, and it was about how Chivu is going to use Çalhanoğlu to disrupt Modric, in some way, I guess, try and limit what he can do in the build-up, but also cause problems going forward. I think Çalhanoğlu joint top scorer this season with 5. I think 3 of them are penalties or whatever. But I don't see them actually facing each other much on the field because they both play deeper. I think what you're probably looking at more is Modric v... I don't know... Maybe Modric helping Rabiot with Barella or going over to help Fofana with Sucic. Those midfield duels, it's never a CDM against a CDM usually, or Regista v Regista because they sit a bit deeper. But if them two did go at it, it would be interesting to see, definitely. But I'm having Modric 100% in that. Rabiot v Sucic, I think that should be a pretty quick one.
Rabiot, yeah. I'm still yearning for those days to return. That time between game 2 and the international break that he got hurt was just peak, man. That was such fun football to watch. Yeah, there was nothing wrong with that moment. And everything wrong this season has come before or after Rabiot. So bring him back. Don't ever let him go again.
Yeah, agreed with that. And having him back and hopefully he does start, and there's no setbacks in anything between now and then is huge because I think that just tips the balance of the midfield in our favour. I would even go so far as to say, this isn't a hot take, but I wouldn't play Fofana. I think we have seen him commit errors in both boxes that have cost us points this season. Yeah. So why you would play him in a game where every error is going to be magnified. I don't like it. I think you put Ricci in as someone who is certainly going to understand the magnitude of this. And look, as I said, I don't mean to be too disrespectful to Fofana because, as I've said before, I think he does do things that won't get credit. And I think Allegri sees him as a perfect player to have between the two boxes. But as I said, the games are won and lost in the boxes and he makes errors in crucial phases. So Derby, when everything's on the line, I'd maybe take him out and I'd consider playing Ricci or even RLC just to make sure we definitely beat them physically. And he gives you an extra option in the air. Now, Jashari is basically being ruled out of starting this one because he's been out for so long. He started the Virtus Entella friendly, which we should briefly mention. Great game of football.
Should we?
Very, very enjoyed, very nice. No, that was just a fitness exercise. You could tell that. I mean, the 3/4 of the squad was Futuro players. We had, I think, Estupiñán, Pulisic, Jashari,
Fofana.
Oh, yeah, Fofana, who didn't look above the level, to be honest. But yeah, that was it. And then the rest was, obviously, a lot of internationals away and then Futuro players. And Futuro players are all in Serie D. and not doing great, whereas Virtus and Entella are like mid-table Serie B, so we probably should have expected to lose that game as it turned out. But yeah, Pully got a goal, so that was good to see. Jashari, I thought, looked sharp in the first half and then tired quite evidently. So I just don't think he's ready to be thrown straight into a start in this game. No, I think you're looking more at Lazio, maybe Lazio in the cup, the game after, as being the one for him to start. So yeah, I'd maybe put Ricci or RLC in there. And then we got the front two.
Yeah, the two number 10s that aren't playing the 10 position. This one's actually tougher than it should be because Lautaro guarantees you goals, right? Leao doesn't. But I do think Leao's a better player technically, and I think he can bring more to the table. But what wins games is scoring goals. So this is a tough one. And I might get killed if I pick Lautaro, but there's a very good argument for why you would pick him. I am going to just stick with my red and black heart and go Leao. But if you say Lautaro, I would not be shocked.
Lautaro, yeah. Everything you said, I'd just be repeating it. I don't want to do that. Moving on.
9-11. Okay. I'm going Pulisic.
I'm taking their front two over our front two. But I'm taking Pulisic v Thuram in the individual, which I know doesn't make sense, but I'd take their pairing over our pairing because I think ours is still unproven and neither of them are actually strikers.
Yeah.
Their front two has won them a league and multiple trophies, whereas ours again is untested. But I think in an individual battle, Pulisic has been a bit more decisive in Serie A since his arrival. But yeah, that is a tough one. That is a tough.
One thing to consider when you compare both front twos, both of ours have 4 league goals. Theirs have 4 and 3. And we had long-term injuries, as did they, but still.
I was going to say, actually, that I think Lautaro's the only one who's stayed fit for long stretch. Is that right? I think the other 3 have spent time out with muscle problems. So, yeah, maybe not the most inflated numbers so far this season. I think more will become clear on those two front twos between now and the end of the season. But I'm looking forward to seeing Pully and Leao up front together and see how they do. All right, let's put it on the line. What do you think? Prediction?
Let's have a fun one. Let's say 3-2 for Milan.
I always do this, but I veer towards a draw because of what's at stake in this. And I think both teams, whether they say it or not, would shake hands for a draw in this one and just kick the issue further down the road. But the problem with that is that we drop points in those games that you then defer the Scudetto race down to. Whereas in the direct matches is where we've made the most ground this season. So I think this could be quite tight. I think this could be one goal either way wins it. But I'll stick with my gut feeling, which is a 1-1 draw. And I think Leao scores in front of his twins. His twins are going to their first ever game. Obviously, they're quite young. And yeah, the big thing in Gazzetta about how he wants to score in front of his kids for the first time, which is understandable. But it's weird when Rafa has these little extra motivations. I think you seem to notice them. And he'll do like a double thumb celebration, and then Çalhanoğlu will score a dodgy penalty to equalise.
I could see that. Over. That's always what it is. Yeah.
All right. Could we do a couple of transfer rumours just quickly? Okay. I mean, there's the big one. It came out from La Repubblica. It's already been denied by Matteo Moretto and the agent. So we'll just talk about the idea more than anything in case it does become something more concrete. Thiago Silva linked with a return. 41 years of age. It would be 13 years since the last time he played for us before he left for PSG. Those links with a return have been, every year or two you'd see it. But he's always been at PSG or at Chelsea. Now he's back in his home country. I just wonder if the wagon might have left this one behind.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I mean, the only way it would happen at this point is when he's 42, and I just don't see that being worth it for either party. It won't benefit the club, and I don't see it raising or elevating his status for anyone. If anything, all it can do is hurt his, I don't want to say legacy, but you know what I mean? Like, he's so beloved here. He's had such a great career. If you were to come back to a top club and fail, it's only going to leave people with a sour taste to end his career. And I don't want that for him. If he were to come in January and do 6 months, end the season, I think he could do it. But I don't want to see him come here in August for a 1-year contract that's just going to be a disaster.
Yeah. His agent has already said as well that, like, Fluminense are a club that he has way too much respect for to just try and leave his contract 6 months before the end and do 6 months in Europe and then what? But if it were a thing where, like, he was offered a coaching role off the back of it, so he comes, he does his bit, and then he stays around, I would be massively in favour of that, because I think he will go down as, when he retires, one of the best defenders of this modern generation. I think he has everything, and I think in his peak there are a few that have been as good as him. Obviously, there are things that we can use as a bit of leverage. Allegri was his coach for the 2 trophies that he won with us in his first spell. Ibra was his teammate, and now we'll probably push for him to come back, given that he's working behind a desk. But yeah, I as I say, I think the train kind of has left the station on this one. I just don't think now you move heaven and earth to make it work. But I would definitely welcome back in another capacity. We are expected to sign an experienced centre-back this winter, though, and let David Adogu go out on loan. Are there any experienced, I guess that means 30-plus centre-backs that you would like? Because I'm sort of struggling to see where they start at the moment.
I would have to
just accept being a backup.
Yeah. I'd honestly, I need to find a list of, like, aging center backs, I guess, and take a look. But off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone that I'm like, this is the guy that'll come in and, Ibra effect. I don't think we have that. Modric is doing it enough. I don't think we need it in every single line of the field. I think it's okay if we get the one. Now, if we did get Lewandowski, which I know is saying we're not going to do, that's another one I'd support, right? I think he still has goals in him even at 38. I mean, you see how just jacked that dude is. I think he could do a number, but in terms of center backs, I don't see one. Because center back is it's rough on your body, man. You're taking the most damage out of any player on the field, in my opinion, because you're constantly going to ground, you're constantly fighting with people. But I don't know. I don't think it's worth it to go for anyone that old. Maybe, I mean, Akanji was about it, to be honest with you. He was probably the oldest guy that I would have been good with this summer, but that's it.
Yeah, I think for it to be a mid-season move, it needs to make sense for everyone. And the name that has stood out to me the most as one that I would be unanimously in favour of was Kim Min-jae at Bayern Munich.
Yes. But he's young, isn't he? How old is he?
Yeah, I mean, he's experienced in the sense that he's won major trophies, I guess, and knows Serie A. So that's why I said 30 plus maybe isn't the best barometer. I guess he does have plenty of experience.
Gotcha.
And he's on a huge salary. So I don't see how that works. And I think if he comes and he's still on quite a big salary, you've got to start him. And then that means benching Gabbia, because I think he can only play in the middle, and that seems unfair to me. So I don't know. I think that's a difficult one. Along the lines of what Inter did by signing Akanji, I'd maybe take a look at Nathan Ake at Man City. I think he's pretty versatile, has been pretty good. He's not experienced, but I think Radu Dragusin could maybe be worth a look. He's not playing too much at Spurs. I mean, I said this on the bonus pod. 6 months of Sergio Ramos would be fun.
I'm against that, but
I think he'd be good. He's spoken very highly of us before. Maldini is his idol. Not that really does much now, but maybe it would appeal to him to try a bit at San Siro. Yeah. But another one who at the Club World Cup looked to still be playing at a good level. He's starting every game and he's captain of Monterrey. And I think that maybe isn't the best level, but it's still competitive.
I'm looking at on Transfer Market right now, and I went most valuable center backs 34 or older, and Van Dijk is number one. Fair enough. I don't think he'd ever sign for us. He still has, he's still good. But then the next, they have him at 23 million. The next person in second place is at 6 million. So big drop off, and it's Koulibaly. Then it's followed by Inigo Martinez, Danilo Pereira, regular Danilo, and then Iturbi. But all those guys outside of Iturbi and Van Dijk are in Saudi Arabia. Well, Danilo's in Brazil, sorry. So that's interesting to think about. But none of these guys are sticking out as like, that's the one I would take, There's just none.
No, I did see the other day, and I think this is going to get an eye roll from you, but I did see that Fabian Schär is meant to be available in January at Newcastle. I actually think he's pretty good. I like him as a middle centre-back, but I just don't know if we need a middle centre-back, because I think that's what De Winter...
Is he starting right now or no?
No, I think they've now gone to Chow and Bernard Botman. So he's kind of dropped down the pecking order there a little bit. Basically, I'm conditioned on the fact that we ain't going to make a blockbuster signing in January. So it has to be someone who isn't playing much. And I do think Schär has been solid for Newcastle for years. But I don't know if we're on the bestest of terms with them after everything that's happened. Maybe we are. I don't know.
Well, we keep selling them players. Like, it's never a difficult negotiation, so they probably do like us.
I would sign a wing back, I think, in January. I think that would be the move. Bit of competition, someone who can play both sides, someone who, maybe isn't starting every game. I like the look of Alex Jimenez at Bournemouth. I'm
not a fan of him. I hear he's got an attitude problem. So shows up late to practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think striker is the most interesting discussion for everyone at the moment. But again, there's no names that are leaping out at me, really. I think Lewandowski can be chalked off for January.
Yeah.
The latest one that I think is doable is Nicholas Füllkrug at West Ham. And, Isaac said he's in favour of it in the chat, so that means we should absolutely stay clear. Yeah. But we pursued Füllkrug before we signed Morata, and then it was like, we're going to sign Füllkrug as well. He chose West Ham, probably higher salary than what we were offering. He's one of them where until he kicked a ball in the Premier League, I'd have been, yes, absolutely get him in. Think he could do well in Syria. Think he plays a bit like some of the big men that have done well here as well, like Dzeko. But since he went to West Ham, it's been a disaster. He's got 3 goals in 18 months. He's only played 27 games. He's missed over 30 with injury. Don't do that. That's just a signing for the sake of it. That's like Pellegrini. I just wouldn't do that. I don't think we're going to get a big signing in the winter, striker-wise. I really don't.
What's crazy is Ronaldo is still the 6th most valuable center forward over the age of 30. He's more valuable than Morata still, so that's funny.
Morata's not scored a league goal yet.
And Füllkrug, by the way, who is 8 years his junior. So there's that.
Isaac did some looking into this the other day. Of the strikers that we were linked with in the summer, I think it was like Victor Boniface, Conrad Harder. I can't find the article. I can't remember who the other two were, but it was, the 4 main names that we'd been linked with in the summer have combined for 5 goals this season. So maybe we are the problem. Maybe we just keep picking shit strikers.
We have. That's genuinely it. We really have. Yeah. And Lukaku is still 4th. I know it's too late. That train's gone, especially after his injury. Who knows how he'll be when he finally returns against us next month. Yeah. But we should have done that 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think there was a moment, wasn't there? There was definitely a window where we could have probably got it done. I think at this stage, you're more likely to... Sorry, I'm just Googling something. You're more likely to get a deal done probably for like a Premier League cast-off. So where do we normally go? We go and we look at Chelsea, but they've had sort of injury problems, so I don't think there's anything we can do there. And then in other Premier League clubs, you're looking at players like Joshua Zirkzee. He ain't going to be a prolific.
It'll end up being Chris Wood.
Oh, I'd love a bit of Chris Wood. Be good. But you look at top scorers in Serie A this season, and this is kind of what this is what Lorenzo and Steph were talking about in the pub chat. You got Çalhanoğlu, midfielder, Orsolini, winger, Nico Pass, midfielder, Boni, first striker on the list, Berardi, winger, Pulisic, naturally a winger, Lautaro, striker, Leao, winger, Anguissa, midfielder, De Bruyne, midfielder.
Yeah.
There's not many top strikers in the league, which suggests everyone is having problems finding the right one. Pellegatti, love him or hate him, if you think he's losing his marbles or whatever, he said a name that I like, Mateta. I think he would be a very, very good signing, but I don't see that happening in January, and he probably costs like 40, 50 mil because of how important he is to Palace, but he's
let's just get Harry Kane, call it a day,
Yeah, I honestly, what I see happening is that nobody goes anywhere in January. We stick with that form. We hope Santi finds his way to 5 league goals, and then we go all in for Lewandowski next summer and hope to get it done. But
because
I don't know.
The only thing they're going to try over the summer is, again, the Santi Dovbyk swap. Or I'm sorry, over January.
Yeah.
And I don't like that at all. I hate that.
Dovbyk's out for 6 weeks.
Okay, so we won't do it because he's out.
So that's why I think everyone stays. Otherwise, that's the only thing I would have said. I've got one question for you.
Okay.
From Schultz. Derby Day happens to be my girlfriend's birthday, and I'm going to be traveling to dinner with her during the second half. Do you have any innovative ways to sneakily watch the game?
Yeah, change your reservation. What are you doing? That was crazy. Yeah, you messed up there, bud. Go to the bathroom. Say you got a stomach ache. Order an appetizer you normally wouldn't eat. Take one bite and be like, I got to go to the bathroom. And then just stand there for 45 minutes. And then,
I don't know if he's asking for ways to, like he's saying he can sneakily watch the game. So how should he do it? And the answer is the Discord chat. The games are streamed on there. But
there's that too.
Okay. That's out there now. I think it's fine. Or if he's saying, like, how can I manufacture a situation where it would be fine to watch the game? And I think you have to fake your own death.
Yeah, I think honesty is always the best policy. So naturally, you need to fake a car accident and just not show up to dinner.
Fake a car accident is an interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Find a way, man. Like,
yeah.
But happy birthday to her.
I've got an idea, a genuine suggestion. Why don't you see how the game's going? Because you say you're traveling during the second half, so you're implying that you need to watch the conclusion of the game. Why don't you see how it's going? And if things are going well, say you want to watch it because it's going to massively uplift your mood for the rest of the day, and it's her birthday. In fact, even say that you'll treat her to something, if you're allowed to watch it and Milan win. If we're losing, you don't have to worry about it, do you? You can just carry on as planned.
I mean, hopefully you treat her to dinner regardless of the result.
Well, how things are.
Is it an event thing? Like, is it all her friends are there and it's a big thing? Or if it's just the two of you and it's romantic, like maybe that's the key. If it's just the two of you, say, hey, babe, I want you to have a great birthday. Why don't you invite your 3 closest friends? And then she'll be distracted and you can just watch, on your phone. You don't have to worry about it. And then she doesn't feel left out either. Because if you just say, like, I want to watch the game and you do it, she might be okay with it, but then think, damn, this is my birthday and you're choosing the game over me. She might not like that. But if she has her friends. Yeah, honestly, be born a different day. What's she thinking? Who gets born during the season?
See, the problem here is that plans have already been made. Like, we've had long enough out to be able to plan for this kind of thing and clear the date. I would always prefer celebrating my birthday on a Saturday. So couldn't have something been done on the Saturday night, and then into the Sunday, you have a more wholesome day. And I don't know.
I think the solutions could have been had last week. I think maybe that you should have done this over the international break, asked this question, so we could have helped you out. But
speaking of break up. That's a solution, is it not?
No, don't do that one. That's crazy work. It depends how long-term the relationship is, I guess. If it's brand new, then but if it's a long-term thing, don't listen to him. That's bad.
Yeah. Anyway, let's end it there. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. We're back later this week with a bonus podcast episode over on the Substack. Back next week with a derby recap, of course, and fingers crossed that we have got a good game and a win to cover. But in the meantime, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
Yep. Anyone else who has an answer to that question, just leave it in the comments so that Schultz can read it and we can read it and laugh as well. So. But we'll see you after the derby with a big win, loss, or draw. Who knows?
Game abandoned. Still be a draw.
Abandoned.
Yeah. Have a fantastic week, everyone.